Welcome to the Clarion podcast, the official podcast of the Clarion, DU school newspaper. I'm Dustin Amick, and this is our inaugural episode. This podcast will include news stories, opinions, reviews, discussions, and probably a few disagreements along the way. I should start out by saying that while the editors of the Clarion are participating, our personal views do not reflect that of the newspaper. Today we'll be talking about USG elections and other campus news, including DU sports. We're going to discuss conservatism versus liberalism on the campus, which should be a fun time, and we'll wrap up with things that we liked this past week. So here with me to discuss some campus news about USG and sports is Sasha Kandrach, our news editor. You do a lot of sports. What's up with that?
Sports is kind of a passion that I've always had since I used to be a soccer player. So I like to do sports writing, but obviously I'm the news editor, so combine both of those passions.
Great. Well, what's going on campus?
Right now it's a big week. We've got the USG elections this week, so we're going to have a new president and vice president by the end of the week. Big week for that.
All right. Well, yeah, very cool. I think I really haven't heard much about it recently.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of just came out of nowhere on my news feed, and it looks like there are a few teams running, a few tickets, and then there's one mostly as a joke. It almost looks like, but
That's what, same here. Yeah, I
what are
think
your
it was
thoughts on
just
that?
kind of sprung. It's kind of interesting. It just kind of sprung out. There wasn't a lot of notice, I guess, or like promotion for it. Where last year it felt like the campaigns were really pushing for a lot of promotion, and this year they just kind of last minute ran. And I don't know if that's because last year's there was controversy, and one of the campaigns actually got they had to like drop out, and they got their campaign like suspended, and they are actually eliminated from it. So
Wow.
we don't know if that's because of that.
Well, either way, I definitely don't have enough time to figure out
Who you're gonna vote for?
exactly.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that goes. I think they're this Friday, the 28th.
Is the final. Yeah, they have a debate on Wednesday night, and then Friday we'll find out who the official.
That is a quick turnaround.
That is a great turnaround.
All right, well, let's move on to sports. Sasha, have you been following the lacrosse?
Yep, that's pretty much my spring beat.
Great. Well, how's men's team doing?
They're doing great. They just won their game on Saturday over Providence, 12-2 victory. So they clinched the number one seed for the fourth consecutive year for the regular season championship in their conference. And then they have the number one, obviously. So they clinched the regular season seed of the Big East Conference, and then they got the number one seed of the conference tournament that'll be held in Providence in 2 weekends.
Okay.
And then they have one more regular season game at Marquette next weekend.
Okay, great. So, yeah, we had won the national championship in lacrosse my freshman year. And then last year, we had a lot of hype going into the playoffs again, and then we lost
First
round to Towson.
Yeah.
So how do we avoid that sort of blunder this year? What's the team... what are they talking about? What's the message going into this one?
I think we have a lot of good senior leadership this year. They have Connor Canizero, who's one of the best attackmen this year. He was a T. Wharton, which is kind of like the Heisman of lacrosse finalist last year, and he's a senior captain this year. I think he's a 53-game point streak, which is like the highest in the nation. Yeah. And so he, along with Christian Bergdorf, who's a senior defenseman and also captain, Trevor Baptiste, who's a phenomenal face-off specialist. I'm sure you've heard about him.
Definitely.
They kind of just have like this humbling kind of leadership because they all are like returners, and they won the national championship previously when they were younger guys, but now they're upperclassmen, and they just kind of have this idea of the process that they want to stick to. And they just kind of know that they can't let their egos get to them. And they're just kind of peaking at the right time right now. They took a harder loss earlier in the season. They felt that curse of number one because it's been a crazy year in lacrosse. There was like 6 weeks where the top seeds of lacrosse all...
We're shifting?
Yeah,
Okay.
where like the number one seeds all dropped. And Denver even felt it, yeah. So... they're just going to have to like stay focused. And right now they're on a 5-game win streak. And so they'll just have to keep their head straight.
That's very exciting. Well, how about the women's team? How are they looking?
They're pretty good right now. They actually have had the highest ranking in program history this year. They were at one point number 12 and then at one point number 13. I think they just dropped to number 16.
Okay.
But they've been doing pretty good overall, and they have their Big East tournament coming up, and then they'll hopefully do a push for the national tournament too.
That's very exciting. Hopefully they get in.
Yeah, and they're in the Big East tournament the Big East conference for the first year. Also,
Oh,
they
okay.
just switched conferences.
I just saw recently that our golf team has been doing well. Have you seen that?
Yeah, they did. They had a tournament. It was like I forgot what tournament it was, but they beat the number one team, which was Alabama.
Okay.
Yeah, and then they placed I think fourth overall in that tournament ended up, but they still had a really good placing. So they've been doing really well as far as in the Summit League, and they last year won the Summit League title. So
That's very exciting, even for golf. So what about gymnastics? I feel like gymnastics is always a very solid contender in the league, but we always forget to
yeah,
really recognize them.
I mean, DU is a powerhouse for sports when you look at how small the school is
Yeah.
as far as population. And then we have 17 varsity programs, but people just kind of tend to focus on hockey and lacrosse, I think. But gymnastics is definitely one of the powerhouse programs. We send at least one or two individual athletes to the NCAA tournament per year. But this year was the eighth time in program history that the team itself went as a team to nationals, and they didn't make it past the semifinals, so they didn't get to go to the championship. But they still, I mean, just as a fact that they went as a team
Yeah,
to nationals was a huge accomplishment in
that's great.
itself. Yeah.
Looking forward to next year with them. And I guess we'll touch on one last team. The soccer. Soccer has been having spring exhibition games.
Yeah.
Have you been reporting on that?
Yeah, I did. I covered that on Saturday. They played Air Force, so it was
Okay.
their fourth game of their 5 game spring season slate, and they beat Air Force 3-2. They had a penalty kick that
Yeah.
won the game.
Great game.
Yeah, it was. And they're just looking to get back in the season after having a phenomenal last season.
So close.
Yeah, they made it to the
Heartbreaking.
College Cup for the
Yeah.
first time in program history, which is like the Final Four of soccer.
Yeah.
But they're just looking to kind of get things going again and just get back in that mindset so that they can hopefully get their first national title.
Hopefully that momentum carries over.
Exactly. Yeah.
What about the women's team?
Yeah, same. They're, doing some spring games here and there. They're looking to rebuild. They had a rebuilding season last year.
Okay.
But they have some fresh new recruits coming in next season, so they should definitely be looking on the upward bounds.
Yeah, that's very exciting. Hopefully they get on the same level in their league.
Yeah, they should be.
Very cool. All right. All right, so let's get into our next topic of discussion. We're here with opinions editor Grace Carson.
Hi.
So, Grace, with everything going on campus with regards to the DU Young Americans for Freedom and their free speech, political incorrectness, what are your thoughts on that?
Like political correctness as a whole, or like
Let's
it being allowed on campus?
let's talk about that event in specific.
Okay. Yeah. So I went.
Okay.
It was very interesting. I felt kind of bad for the person who hosted it because I feel like he wasn't prepared for the environment he was stepping into. Slash, he didn't know like what was going on at DU previously, like fall quarter with the wall and everything. So like even when he was like asked a question about the wall, he like referred to Donald Trump's like proposed wall, and that obviously wasn't what we were talking about. And also I felt bad for him because he didn't really know what he was talking about, in my opinion. Even when asked about like the like legality of it and like all that, he said like he doesn't have a background in that, so he's not like able to answer that, which in my opinion, like why would you be talking to us if you're not like an expert in like free speech versus hate speech? Yeah, and also it was just like a really tense environment because you didn't know who was there as like supporting the event and who was there just to kind of protest slash listen in. So Yeah, it was really interesting. I particularly didn't like his point that hate speech is a minority's best friend. As a minority, hate speech has never helped me. In fact, like historically, hate speech has led to actual violence against people. Like when you think about like the Japanese internment camps, that happened because there was a lot of hate speech around being Japanese at the time, and the attack on Pearl Harbor just kind of like made that able to happen, but also just the rhetoric before. Also, Sarah Lipton, who is a historian
Mm-hmm.
in like iconography
Okay.
about like anti-Jewish things. She did a talk here about like how that rhetoric against Jewish like led to like violence against them. So yeah, it's just like historically proven that hate speech actually leads to like real consequences. And I don't think that there's ever an instance in which hate speech is a minority's best friend. Like his point was that like, oh, you'll see that they're against you, or you'll see that they're a bad person and you won't want to talk to them. But like that's not how the real world works. It's not like no word is just like innocent in itself, or just like no word is just a word, like it always leads to more. So yeah.
Sure. What did you think of their point that they are very pro free speech and campuses such as DU and very liberal campuses uh, like DU are sort of limiting that?
Yeah, so I guess I can't speak on behalf of other universities, but I know DU, actually the vice chancellor, Lily Rodriguez, helped put on the free speech political incorrectness rally thing. So even the fact that we have administration like helping the conservative side actually get their opinion out there, I think says a lot about DU encouraging all sides to be heard. I also haven't had any instance in which DU, at least as an institution, has like stopped any like free speech, even when I think that they probably should. So I think that I don't know. I just don't see DU as being really restrictive in that, at least not as an institution. Like, yeah, you're gonna get judged and ridiculed for like your opinions, but I think that happens anywhere, and you can't really like. It's really funny that I think Young Americans for Freedom are asking for like safe spaces to be abolished, but at the same time, they're asking for their opinion to be like respected or like I don't know, like understood no matter what. But that's just like not realistically how things happen. So yeah.
Do you think there's a problem nationwide on campuses limiting conservative free speech?
No, I wouldn't say so, at least from what I've seen or read about. I think that maybe campuses have been more stricter about hate speech. I wouldn't say that hate speech and free speech are the same thing. I would say hate speech is the line. Like once speech targets an individual and has the potential to lead to harm to people or a group of people, I think that's the line. And I think that universities have done something against that. And I think that's totally different than limiting free speech.
In a constitutional sense, hate speech is protected under the First Amendment. And while there are free speech restrictions on a private university's campus, such as DU, uh, there has been a lot of controversy uh, throughout the nation. Like, for example, at UC Berkeley, a lot of the student body had shut down Milo Yiannopoulos' speaking engagement there. They have just recently shut down Ann Coulter's engagement. Isn't, in a sense, they're doing the conservatives' work for them by shutting down this free speech. Shouldn't they just, in a way, take the advice of that speaker at the meeting and let them out themselves as this hateful white supremacist being?
Yes.
Because that's what they are, but
Yeah.
we're preventing them from saying that.
Yeah, definitely. So I think in UC Berkeley's case, it wasn't the institution that shut it down, it was the students who shut it down. And I would argue they were given that opportunity to have free speech and people reacted to that. And I think that that is well in their range of their own free speech. Yeah. Does that answer your question?
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. I think one thing that was curious to me after the election in the fall, there was an email sent out for students who were looking for counseling or help after the loss for Hillary Clinton. Do you think the same would? Do you think that same arm would have been reached out to students if Trump would have lost? Is
Um,
there a double standard for conservative students on
yeah.
college?
So I guess probably not. But I would argue that I guess it's really hard to argue this to somebody who is a Trump supporter, but
Yeah.
as somebody who was not a Trump supporter, not necessarily all for Clinton, but that's another conversation.
Of course.
But I would argue that we had a lot more to lose,
Yeah.
especially as minorities or as women or as LGBTQIA plus community. We had a lot more to lose in terms of rights and in terms of like policy and laws that were to be made. Whereas I believe, I guess I can't really speak on behalf of the rights opinion, but they didn't have as much to lose if Hillary were to take office. I think that it would have been just like a continuation for the most part of the Obama era. But with Trump winning, we definitely lost a lot. And you could see that with his policy on like the Muslim ban and et cetera, and his healthcare reform or trying to reform the healthcare and all that.
Right. Do you think college students, liberal college students in general, have a communication problem in reaching out to conservative students and really extending a message of empathy, even with their opposite point of view?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's really a problem right now, especially after the loss, but even before, with just Trump coming in because it's really heated and it's really sensitive and it's also really personal.
Yeah.
I even find it hard for myself to empathize or understand the other side, especially when I feel like their beliefs are rooted in like the belief of my oppression or my friend's oppression. It's really hard for me to be like, oh yeah, like I'll try to understand that, or like even for me to try to take that step towards understanding whenever I feel personally attacked or I feel like attacked on behalf of my friends.
Sure.
It's really hard to empathize with other people when you feel like they don't believe that you should have the same rights as them, or they don't believe in your humanity.
Isn't there a need to bite the bullet though on some certain things to really help them, or do you believe that they're too far gone? Because I think a huge problem is conservative students might speak out in class or whatnot, and they're immediately deemed racist or sexist when their comments could be seen as that, and most likely are. It's just more, it comes off more as a level of ignorance rather than a vitriol.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's definitely something that I struggle with, and like trying to understand, like they don't have the same experience as me. But at the same time, I'm not really sure, especially for people of color, if it's their job to be understanding and be that bridge and like help them understanding. I feel like a lot of pressure is put on minorities to like be the person who gives them information and be the person who like brings them like like shows them the light. And that puts a lot of
Sure.
pressure on students of color. But at the same time, I do understand the point of like they might just not know. They might have different experiences. They might have grown up in like a rich white household, and they might not have been like like aware of these problems and issues. But I think there is a fine line between being understanding and also just like not putting up with hateful rhetoric.
Sure.
But yeah.
What's the line between when approaching someone? What's the line between condescension and education? Because I feel so many conservative students, they feel attacked, they feel threatened.
Yeah, definitely.
How do we, as more liberal students, extend the message that doesn't make them feel threatened and makes them understand it, rather than in a debate session?
Yeah.
That nothing's going to get solved in a debate. You want to be able to talk about it, but how do you talk about it without them feeling threatened or accused?
Yeah, no, I think that's really hard. I definitely don't have the answer. I think that it kind of goes on both parts, though.
Yeah.
As a conservative student, just try, I know it's hard, not to feel threatened or attacked, but also on the other side, try to be more understanding. Like I said, that they might not have the same experiences as you or opportunities if you have to be enlightened. But yeah, so I think it just is like kind of give and take from both sides.
Yeah, I find myself in that position all the time. I'm in a voice and gender class, and I listen, and I still feel like, hey, that's not That's not me. Don't put that on me.
Yeah,
But
no,
at the same
definitely.
time, like, I do benefit from certain systems or privileges because of
Yeah,
simply
definitely.
who I am. But still I feel accused in a sense,
Yeah.
or lumped in the wrong party.
Hmm.
And I think that's what they feel too. And I think it's just a tough path forward for
Yeah.
liberal students. So how do we reach out and really bridge that divide?
Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I wish that I had the answer,
Hmm.
but yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's definitely really tough.
Is there a level of respect? Are we lacking respect? I think. Do you respect their opinions or do you not? Because there are certain ones that I'm like that I
Yeah,
don't
like I
respect
said,
that.
like I
But
think there's a line like
yeah.
with fiscal conservatives, like I can agree with you, like maybe we shouldn't be. I mean, okay, I don't agree with you, but I can respect your opinion that maybe
Hmm.
like there should be a little bit less taxes. But when it comes to like social conservatives, and if like your opinion is like I don't think that gay people or anything deserves to get married, like that's an issue of you taking away their rights, and that's where I can't respect that opinion because I feel like you are not respecting somebody's humanity.
Okay.
So yeah.
Do we provide safe spaces for conservatives in a
uh
sense? I mean, they give we get crap for wanting safe spaces, or brave
mhm.
spaces
Yeah.
now is the more current term. And while conservatives argue that that's a snowflake sort of
Mhm.
request, should we not be trying to offer those spaces for them,
Yeah,
or do they have them already?
I
And
think that I think that like back to administration and professors, I think that they
sure,
really try their hardest to give
okay,
them safe spaces. As for students, I could see us needing to try harder to be less critical and maybe giving them more space to um, talk about things or just talk out things without being harsh. I know, like, I've personally been in classes where debates have just gotten way out of hand, and as much as the professor tries to like moderate things, it's gotten pretty personal. Um, so yeah, I think so. My answer to that is that the administration and I think professors, especially at least at DU, really try their hardest to give safe spaces for conservatives. I don't think that students do the same. So.
okay. Okay, to wrap up, we'll talk about things that we've really liked this week. For me, I feel late to the party, but I've really gotten into The Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. Funny enough, my friend showed me this video on YouTube. It was The Wizard of Oz, but silent, and with Dark Side of the Moon playing over it. And it's strangely very well coordinated, and it goes together really well. And it was blowing my mind, and I watched it a second time this weekend, and I've been stuck with that album. It's a fantastic album. My God, Pink Floyd. Who knew? But anyway, Sasha, what's been your favorite thing this past week?
I've been super into playoff hockey.
Yeah,
It's the time of the year, favorite time of the year.
definitely.
But my team is the Bruins, and they just got knocked out in a devastating kind of series. They were
It
fighting
was a
back.
close game.
It was.
Every game was overtime
It
almost. It was
was.
that was
I know
tough.
you pay attention to that, to the Bruins. Yeah, so you were watching that. I
I
know.
was.
But it was close, and I'm bummed. But now I guess I'm pulling for the Maple Leafs or the Capitals. So we'll
Yeah.
see.
Okay. Okay, Grace, tell me about something that you have liked this past week.
Yeah, so something that has gotten me through this week, and this week has been really rough, is Kendrick Lamar's new album, Damn. It is amazing. It's been really good. It's been really uplifting. I like a lot of the messages that he has, and also it's just like really fun to like dance to, even though I can't really dance. So that's been really nice. Yeah, I think that's been the highlight of my week.
Perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not
What?
on the bandwagon yet.
You
I've
have
yet to hear
to.
it.
Oh my gosh.
I'm behind, but
You
I'll
are
get
way
on that.
behind.
Okay. All right. That's it for this week. A new edition of the Clarion will be on newsstands Wednesday, April 26th. Remember to look up USG elections and vote this Friday. I'd like to thank Grace Carson and Sasha Kandrach for their participation. And thanks for listening. We'll be back next week.